name is Joanna Pinsky. I'm co-founder and artistic director of Art Encounter, a nonprofit art education organization in Evanston. Today, I'm delighted to have a conversation with Yadi Royster. Yadi is a terrific painter and also a lead Art Encounter teaching artist. Well, getting into some of your work, you've worked in series.
You know, most of my series, they come from either something that has touched me deep in my heart, but a lot of my series comes from dreams.
Well, let's look at some of the work from one of the series, and today we are going to just pretty much focus on I guess it's your math series of art. What inspired you to do this?
So, you know, I went back to school in my 50s just because I've always been a computer geek. I went to finally get a degree in it, and the first year I was hit with all this algebra and, you know, some physics, and I was insane. And I hadn't been in the studio for like a year. And towards the end of this year of math, I just stopped thinking. I couldn't solve the problems anymore. I was brain dead. So I got angry and I started throwing balled up pieces of paper and all over the place because I was just done, and I thought I was going to drop the class. And so that particular day, I went into the studio and I was just throwing at the canvas these balls of math paper. And it just started. It was like, oh, why did I put these on canvas? Step away from school and go into the studio. And the first piece began that way. And believe it or not, doing that series, I aced that class without a doubt.
That is amazing. And that math mapping series, I have to say, I remember coming to one of the classes you were teaching and you were showing the work and talking to the students, and their eyes were just popping out of their heads, because what you told them is that frustration's okay. And you went through this experience and you used the art, but then you went back to work on the math and you aced it. So it was such a great lesson. In the first image that I have, math mapping, it looks like there's a figure floating and with X's in her eyes. Can you talk about that piece a little bit?
That was the first one. In fact, it now hangs in Nichols School, elementary school here in Evanston. A client purchased it and donated it to the school. So, but that was the first one. So that's what I was feeling, just totally lost. So the X's in the eyes were just, I couldn't see it anymore.
I feel like there's a jump between math mapping and, is it numlocks? Yeah. Is that the name of the next one?
Yeah, and the figure is kind of melded in there with that orange circle at the top. It looks like a head upside down or something. So I'm being buried pretty much in those numbers. But yeah, I can't even tell you. It's the numbers dancing off is like dreadlocks. So I created like a dreadlock pattern. I try to put in, there's no rhyme or reason for most of those, Joanna. It's how I'm feeling when I'm creating. But I try to put a figure in every one of them. It was my most intense series, but also the most rewarding, because it just opened up the floodgates in my brain again, and I was able to think and feel and just know better.
So there's two things that are going on here, Yadi. One is the math, and in essence, the story behind it, which is what are you going to do with the math? And then the process of creating art. And if you're crumbling up something to begin with, you're going to have a very unpredictable result. and something that you have to work with. So in essence, you have to bring those two areas together. And that may be what makes those images so exciting, is that you don't quite know where, as a viewer, you don't know exactly where you're going to be led. You've also done a number of of this series in sculpture. Have you always worked in sculpture?
I love sculpture. If it was up to me, I would sculpt all the time and throw in painting as a side thing. But it's about space, and there's only, you know, so many places you can put sculpture.
Well, they become a nice marriage of painting and sculpture, and sometimes the sculpture leads the way, it seems like, and sometimes the painting does. The other thing is the figure is really prominent in all of those. You said there were figures in the paintings, but sometimes you can barely see them.
Right.
So that must have been interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and I was surprised this came out of me, but you know, I'm all about duality. I think, you know, there's two sides to us without a doubt, at least two. And so, you know, I like to marry my analytical and creative whenever I can. So that's why a lot of these have that split, because on one end, it took the creativity for me to master the analytical part of my course. So I like to show that split personality, you know, that occurs when you're creating, whether it's on your analytical side, because when I worked in corporate America, I actually worked as if I was creating sculpture.
It's interesting with the figures in these particular pieces because a couple of them feel more entangled in the painting part, like they're really struggling. Whereas towards the last one particularly feels I had a dream, feels really free. Like it's moving and it's enjoying life and everything is going.
That's exactly what it is. Yes. I'm glad you can feel that, because that one was never meant to be, but I kept dreaming about it. And I kept saying, nope, no more sculpture. I'm done with the series. But I found the last of scrap. You notice that there's less paper on that one because I was pulling out the last bit of note paper. And it was finally, after dreaming about it twice. A lot of times when I have dreams about art, the dream will reoccur until I start it. So it kept coming back. I finally just did it, but it was a sense of freedom because there was no more crumbled notes.
You've been working as a teaching artist. I met you and then you trained with Art Encounter, and you've been really fabulous in that regard. Has working as an Art Encounter teaching artist influenced your own art?
Through the years, it has been an instrument for creating. For instance, I don't even know what year. I've been with you guys for so long, but I was working on the west side in an impoverished neighborhood, which in an effort to kind of understand my kids and where they were coming from, I used to drive around the community, and what I discovered was these historic buildings that they were now run down, and these are where their children were living. And that prompted some artwork for me, a series that did pretty well. So yeah, at times it does.
I remember that series, and I remember bringing some of those back into the school with other of the teaching artists also brought those in. They were really a wonderful series. Has making art affected the way you teach?
Absolutely. You know, that's a weird question because I can throw things back. When I was a kid, I always knew I would teach. So making art helps me break down how I need to explain it to the kids. So yeah, making art really does help me in every aspect of my life, because I work in terms of projects and breaking down the pieces and coming up with solutions before they become a problem. So that helps me teach the kids better.
Back to Art Encounter and teaching, what does it mean for you to be a teaching artist?
I love sharing knowledge. But when you have these young minds, before they're corrupted by society, before, life kicks in, I love sharing knowledge with them and helping them see that no matter who you are, you're okay. No matter what you want to do, it's okay. You just work through it. So I think just seeing their little eyes light up with, like, I'll tell them, there's no right or wrong, neither in art, nor if I ask you a question and it's not correct, what's the worst can happen? Get the right answer. So just teaching and watching them find their own voice because you've given them that freedom. And also being able to listen to them. Oh my God, I learned so much from the kids, because we forget they have their own little knowledge, and they impart so much knowledge on me. I mean, I can't even imagine not teaching and sharing,